want to bring it in?
Sure.
This is your idea, which is a very good one.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right, everyone. Welcome to this latest CP short-ish / rant / conversation on a topic that's pretty hot in the media right now on resting athletes. So, in particular, resting athletes with some of the stuff that's been going on in the NBA recently, if anyone's been paying attention. So I've seen a lot of this being talked about on various ESPN and other sport media outlets this past week, where a lot of fans, a lot of players, a lot of people seem to have really strong opinions on the matter about the idea of teams resting some of their bigger stars, bigger players for bigger games, but usually they're games that are, played where it's the third or fourth game in a row. They've been traveling a lot on the road, and the owners or the coaches think it's in the players' best interest to rest their guys so that they get the rest that they need to ensure that they'll be performing at their best later in the season, whether it's in the playoffs or extending even the longevity of their career in general. And a lot of people don't think that's appropriate. They think they're getting paid millions of dollars. It's their job to go out and play, so that's what they should do, is to go play. And no one really seems to take into consideration the fact that these types of strategies of resting players are really for the players' best interest, to get them the rest that they need, so that, again, it reduces their risk of injury, so that they can play better, perform better, and hopefully win championships, which I think should be the goal, and I think should be the top priority. But a lot of people are kind of, I would say, clouded by the issue of money that comes into play. A lot of fans get upset when they pay a lot of money to go see their favorite stars. They show up to the game, the star's not there. They have to watch kind of the B squad play. They don't like it. Ratings for TV go down with these types of games when the stars aren't playing. So the TV contracts, the big money deals, they're not liking it. So again, a lot of people have issues with this kind of recent strategy that's become a big story just within the last season or two within the NBA in particular. And again, a lot of people have spoken about this. They've brought on former players, and they're very against it, saying back in their day they didn't need to rest. Players today are being coddled, they're soft. They have all these amenities that weren't available to players in the past, yada, yada, yada. And it seems that, again, everyone just refuses to look at the bigger picture of that, in my mind, and what I think is driving this type of strategy is just to get players the rest that they need so that they're playing better and reducing their risk of injury. So we just kind of wanted to share our input on it and talk a little bit about what we think should be done, and then what we even see at the collegiate level, and kind of touch on some of the pros and cons of this, because what has also been brought to kind of the argument is the fact that the players may not even like this strategy. Some of them aren't happy when they're told that they have to sit and they would rather go play, and they themselves have a hard time buying into why it is important for them to do this. And we kind of see some of the same things here, even at the collegiate level, where we program in rest days or active recovery workouts or kind of deload training periods, and then we'll catch the athletes in the weight room doing their own workout, doing extra exercises, extra volume, when we specifically told them not to. So sometimes, again, not even the athletes themselves will buy into this and see the importance or understand the value of it. So it's not really an easy or simple strategy, and a lot of people, again, obviously have very different opinions on the matter. So, Joel, I don't know if you wanted to add in on some of the struggles that we see here at the collegiate level, and why you as an athletic trainer, think it's important, or why that we should be incorporating more rest into the players' programs.
I think it's a huge thing, and it's almost a chicken and the egg at the professional level, because I know there's been talk about, like, our season's too long. Does the NBA need 82 games or whatever it may be? Does that Major League Baseball need 160 or 180 games, whatever it may be? But then we're going to come back around to the money thing, because it's a revenue generator, and so I don't want to dive too far into that. thought your point was very interesting, and I had this when you talked about the former players who, we never rested, and and they've got all this, and they're being coddled. And I know we don't know the answer yet, but I'd be really curious. And I think NBA, when you look at how some of the former NBA players, how their knees are, how their backs are, how their ankles are, and how that will look for the current crop. Are they going to have a better longevity of life because of all these things? But we just don't know that answer yet. I think that would be really interesting.
Right.
I think some of the science coming out, and we can dive into that, which I think was kind of our point of it, where now there's people traveling that are there's jobs being created across the board and even down to the college level of these sports performance scientists or these sports scientists and the sleep research. I can't remember his name. It's Duncan something. He was on Sigma and a couple other ones. I'll try and throw a link into that one where they've actually mapped out based on competition nights, because obviously some of them being night games, how they should follow their sleep pattern, because it's obviously going to be skewed out of that one, and like that's come down to an actual like science. I think a lot of, you made the comment of our athletes, I think we see it a lot in the off season, because there's still a huge mindset of the sun is good, more is better mentality, which is getting broken down, but that's kind of America in everything, not even just athletics. Yeah, a little bit of this is good, then obviously more of it's going to be better. I think we're starting to get the buy-in on our end. It's slowly getting there. But yeah, I think it's just, again, more and more and more information.
Yeah, and it's coming, and you mentioned with the development and evolution of sport analytics, the type of monitoring that they're doing with athletes. I mean, the data...
Was it Leinster? It's the soccer club that went from like worst to first in the European League. And they did all the tracking, and it was like super sports science based, and they had a bunch. It's like Westminster City or something like that. I'll look that up too. That's terrible. I don't know what it is, but they didn't overdo it. It wasn't by doing more, it was by doing it smarter, and they're saying that was a big reason that they had like the most dramatic worst to first thing in that soccer league's history just last year.
And I think that's the biggest part of it, is letting the data speak for itself when it can show that the athletes are, whether they're overtraining or under recovering or some combination of the two. Rest is usually a common prescription for both of those. Just kind of reduce the training stress, training volume, let them recover a little bit. And again, it's probably going to help them more that season specifically, but if you can do that throughout the career, it in theory should lead to a couple extra years in their career. But then even after they retire, their quality of life is probably going to improve as well. We see that, unfortunately, we've kind of learned the hard way with football and NFL when they've seen a lot of the the concussion and brain injury stuff come to fruition. Now it's like, geez, this is scary
that's
stuff.
A hard one just because of the nature of the sport.
Yeah, and there's
gonna be wear and tear, and the bigger and the faster and the stronger.
Yeah,
it's hard to repair that stuff. Where not that baseball and basketball haven't, but it's less traumatic stress, I would say. Not perfectly, but
yeah, different kinds, and they'll manifest themselves differently, or at least the side effects and symptoms of them. But again, we're learning a lot about what the NFL does to a player, especially after they retire. Not as easy to fix in that particular case, because unless you're changing to flag football or touch football, you're never going to get around the risk of concussions and brain injury. But the science is there, and we're learning a lot more about it, so why not take advantage of it? That's always my thought on it. If we know that rest can have a direct impact on their ability to perform and recover, why not take advantage of it? That's what those guys are getting paid to do, and in the grand scheme of things, it's going to help a player perform better, which that's their job, is to win championships. So if that's the ultimate goal, then that's what you should be doing. You should be using rest as a strategy throughout a season. If that's not the goal, and the goal is to bring more fans into the game, make more money, then don't rest. Force the players to play, to sell more tickets, get more TV revenue. it really depends on what the number one priority is, because that will shape the policies and the strategies moving forward. So whichever it is, I don't know. I don't get paid to make those decisions, but someone else does, and I think that's what will determine what happens, because they've tossed around ideas of extending the season, make it longer so you're not playing so many back-to-back games. You get more rest in
something
between,
else to look at, yeah.
Or taking away games, only play a 74-game season. They've talked about trying to just eliminate back-to-back games, or the amount of traveling that they do to get them more rest. So those things could work, but they're also talking about making a firm policy of saying you have to play them, which then creates the...
I'd like to see how the Players Association responds to that.
That's what they talk about, is the instant rebuttal that they would get people faking injuries left and right to still find a loophole and get the rest if they want it. So
remind me never to work in the NBA. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah,
I don't need to be in the middle of that one.
Right. And I'm surprised actually on how many of these people are anti-rest. They're saying they get paid a lot of money to go play, and that's what they should do. That's their job. And it's like, yeah, I get that, but if you want them to play at their best or to win championships, this is probably the best way to do it. So if that's the goal, that's where I think rest should be used as an advantage, not thought of it as a missed opportunity to make more money, which seems to be the bigger issue right now, or that could be driving the ultimate decision, unfortunately.
Such a slippery slope. I don't even... It's hard to say anything. Yeah.
So it's been interesting listening to a lot of the different people's perspectives. Even just this past week on Mike and Mike, they've brought a lot of people in on the morning. That's probably the go-to radio show I listen to. And again, all kinds of players, managers, coaches, getting all their perspectives on it. And a lot of people think the problem or the issue is just going to get worse, because they think more and more teams are going to start resting guys because they see the value in it. So they're going to have to make a decision pretty quick on what the policy will be moving forward. But I know the commissioner sent out a letter saying, I'm paraphrasing, but severe punishments will be put in place if this trend continues. So I don't know what that means, if they fine people or what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. And again, they're going to have to find some middle ground, I think, moving forward. But hot topic.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think kind of back to ours, the bottom line is, even if you take it out of the NBA, I think, and you come back to our level in the college and the younger, because how many of us get associated with the NBA, like, you got the training smarter, not harder, is where everything's going, because the data and the information is showing us that. And that goes for the college athlete, the high school athlete, to the recreational athlete. You've got to let your body recover. You've got to let your nervous system recover. You've got to take care of those things.
Right.
And some of those bigger, misconceptions. I'm not working out today, so I don't need to eat as much. Yeah, you probably should eat just as much, if not a little bit more, to help your body recover, even though it doesn't make sense. Like, that's what the evidence shows. Getting your good rest and doing it properly, making sure you're doing a recovery day, and that's not a bad thing. You don't have to blow it out every workout to where you are sore till the next one. Like, that's all the things, and I think there's enough out there now showing that shift that people got to be aware of it, and that's how you're going to get better long-term results, other than any kind of quick fix. And I know that's something we've talked about quite a bit. So
yeah, and just getting the athletes themselves to buy into it, because a lot of them are hardwired to always go. That's what got them in the position they're in. So getting them to allow themselves to rest, recover, and kind of just take a minute to relax and chill out and calm down will go a long way. And even kind of what you talked about across different sports, different levels of competition, we could apply the same rationale to specialization of sport.
Yeah.
Where, you play one sport all year round. Get on two different teams, a travel team, your high school team or your school team, whatever, you're essentially setting yourself up to burn out or become injured. And
I saw a thing where some high school kid threw 152 pitches in a game.
Yeah, it's just, why are people still making these mistakes? same thing with sports specialization. It's the science is there and says you're more likely to make it to the next level if you're a 2 or 3 sport athlete. But we still see it all the time with the over specialization. So it's weird that people ignore the science, but
for sure.
I guess that's where we come into play and hopefully bridge that gap a little bit.
Hoping to spread good information.
Yep.
So,
all
yeah,
right.
What's that? Questions? Shoot us an email, info@clinicallypress.com. We'll be happy to get back to you with anything that you have with that. And until next time.
I'd love to hear a counter argument. If people
comment.
Yeah.
This would be great.
People think we're crazy and full of it. Feel free to let us have it.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
This is Joel just finishing up the episode. We referenced a couple things in the episode that I could not remember off the top of my head. And instead of just putting links, just because it's not always as easy. And if you're listening to this on an actual podcast and not on YouTube, here are your references. The first person I referred to, where I thought it was Duncan, it is Ian Dunnican, who is a PhD researcher out of Australia. He was on the Sigma Nutrition podcast episode number 145. Very interesting when it comes to sleep and timing that out. He also has a blog, sleepforperformance.wordpress.com. Beyond that, we also talked about the soccer team that went worst to first. That is Leicester City, or Leicester City. It's Leicster. It was a worst to first, and just doing some Googling on the headlines, apparently they are now back in the worst category, unfortunately for them. But there is a lot of talk about how the sports science took a team like that that wasn't as talented but made the most of what they had. Again, like we've said in the episode, please comment, come up with rebuttals, whatever you gotta do. Whether it's a strong opinion, we're all for it, and we really look forward to having those conversations. Thanks, and then hope you enjoyed the episode.